SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary 5, Jaho Jifkados, Mvskoke Radio, Mabu Hedgewedskis. Welcome to a beautifully bright but yet a touch chilly morning here in Okmulgee. Appreciate you all taking time to listen up and check out our program today. We've got a couple things we have planned, and of course, live radio being what it is, we of course have to make some last-minute adjustments. But we have a first-class guest here to start off our show. We're welcoming our second chief, Mr. Del Beaver. Good morning, sir. Thank you for taking time.
Hey, good morning, Gary. It's my pleasure being here.
Okay, and of course our press secretary, Mr. Jason Salzman.
Oh, hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, caught you off guard, didn't I?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, well, thank you for making time, Chief Beaver. We appreciate you taking a break from this. It's got to be a ridiculously busy schedule these days. We, of course, have had Chief Hill on the show and talking about how we're doing now, but we're glad to have you come in and kind of brace things up, give us another perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, as your agenda goes, and of course the Creek Nation, what's happening there today?
Well, today we actually are talking with the other tribal leaders. We're talking about the distribution of the $8 billion that from the CARES Act. And we're talking about how what factors should come into play, how that money is dispersed amongst the tribes. When I say the tribes, just not the Oklahoma tribes, but all the tribes throughout the lower 48. And so, that was one of the topics that we had this morning, and it's actually the main topic that we talked about this morning. Was the distribution, what factors should come into play? Should it be, based on population of the tribes? Should it be based on the employees of the tribes? Should land base come into play? Those are the type of things that we got to that we're talking about and have to kind of figure out. And well, actually, we don't have to figure it out. It's the government that has to figure that out. But we should have a strong say on what things should come into play and what should matter the most, really. How do you weight those things? That's type of some of the conversations we're having this morning.
Right now, the money you're talking about is some of the relief package being discussed by the federal administration and Congress and arguing over it, as usual. I understand, though, that the 5 civilized tribes here in Oklahoma have written letters to various people opposing a distribution of some of those funds to Alaska Native corporations.
Correct.
I'm not saying tribal councils, I'm saying corporations.
Yeah.
And those were businesses pretty much set up. They didn't have the same reservation status as the tribes in the lower 48. So this is a for-profit corporations separated from tribal council governments.
Correct.
Now, on the top of that, it sounds like, well, why would you want to deny somebody some assistance like that? But I understand there's more to it.
Yeah, it's kind of a little muddied, if you will, because that money is set. The $8 billion is set aside for tribal governments, flat out tribal governments. So why would you throw a corporation into there amongst the tribal governments? If you're going to do that, then how come our corporations, our tribal corporations, can't be involved? How come our business entities can't be involved? Our casinos can't be involved? So you can see kind of where we're at on that. Is it going to be just for tribal governments, or is it going to be for tribal governments and corporations? And corporations, of course, mean for-profit businesses, and the ANC was created for profit. So So which is it going to be? If it's going to be both, all right, then we have many corporations here, right? A lot of corporations here in Oklahoma, a lot of casinos here in Oklahoma that should be part of this relief package then. So it's got to be either or. It can't be just both, or it can't be just both and some of this just the ANCs. So that's kind of the arguments that we're having. Either if you're going to include the ANCs, then you have to open it up for our casinos also. So that's the argument that we're
yeah, I understand. Now, ANCSA, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, set up these corporations to get these villages and regions off on a good, sound financial footing, if you will. Some of them did quite well and are multi-billion-dollar corporations. Others kind of tanked.
Right.
So it's a mixed bag there, but I think most of them have recovered, and in some cases are sort of looked to as a governing agency without being a government, because of the money.
Right.
And tribal councils and the small village governing bodies have the legal authority. Now, you're saying that perhaps this money should go only to them, right, and not to the wealthy corporations?
Well, it shouldn't go to the corporations because the main thing is why. I mean, if it goes to corporations, just tell us why. What's the reasoning? I think that's the main thing is why. If you can just tell us why it's going to the corporations, then maybe we might understand better, but we're not being told why. And if I'm not mistaken, what is the $8 billion for? It's for the COVID relief, right? So how are these corporations being affected by the COVID-19 virus? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's my thinking is I thought it was just it's to help ease the impact of the COVID virus. So how are these corporations being affected? It's their bottom line, if I'm not mistaken. So, we have plenty of bottom lines here that are being affected also, but that money is not being able to help out. So that's kind of where it kind of boils down to is, it's not that we're saying that they shouldn't be helped, that the Alaskan villages shouldn't be helped. Just kind of make it clearer of how they're being helped with this money. How is the COVID virus being affecting these villages? Because it's pretty clear how it's affecting us. So that to me that's the main thing is let's be transparent. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. So how come other corporations, other people aren't being held to the same standard? So it's about transparency and like always when money starts being involved, everybody wants their share. Right. So we're just trying to make sure that we get our fair share.
Here's a strange question. That's the best way I could put it. Do you think the current Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs, being a member of a wealthy board, has anything to do with it?
I would, just my personal opinion is I don't see how it doesn't, because she was the president or the vice president of the Arctic Slope Corporation, the Federation, and so so how does that not play into it? Yeah, and the author of one of the senators that helped the tribes get this $8 billion. She's from Alaska. So how does it not help? So for somebody to say, if somebody said, that had nothing to do with it, I would be just a little interested to tell me how it's not. Yeah. Convince me that it's not. Mm-hmm. Just do it. Just convince me that it's not. So
yeah, it would be kind of hard to do because he's going to have to go home to those communities and explain what's going on.
That's right.
Now that money, when and if it gets allocated, do you have a target for it? I mean, do you have a place where this will be going?
One of the things that we would like to see, it's not set in stone where this money should go because one, it's not set in stone how it should be allocated, right? So we've one it I think is to help us any of our employees that we had to send home because of they whether they're deemed essential or not essential, whether they're part of the CDC guidelines that recommended people be sent home because of they meet certain criteria. Whether it, and to me, I think it should be, if it affected any of our businesses that had to be shut down. So because you have all this relief money that's not part of the $8 billion package, right? And, the small business loans that are out there for these businesses that had to shut down because of it. They had to be shut down because of this, but yet our casinos are left out. So I just don't see how it's fair that there's all this money out there to help these individuals, these business owners, but yet somehow the casinos are left out of this equation.
Is it because the casinos are too big, perhaps, and have been making incredible revenue sources for the tribe, do you think?
I mean, why would you penalize us for being too successful? I mean, why would you penalize a successful business owner?
Right.
That don't make any sense to me. So I don't know why. I can't answer that. And to me, there has been no answers for it.
Right.
Let
me shift gears here just a little bit. Now, since we've been dealing with this epidemic, we've had to make some pretty radical changes to work schedules and projects being placed on hold, and the health department having to rally its troops and things like that.
Correct.
It would seem that under previous administrations, we had an emergency management person. Mr. Nichols had that job. It's still vacant, as I understand. And do you have any plans? Wouldn't it make sense to have someone in charge of all of that?
Absolutely, you're right. That position was created by legislation back in 2010, 07, somewhere around there. I've looked at the legislation a couple months ago, but that position was created by legislation. The emergency management program was created through legislation, and so in that legislation is actually two positions: the supervisor and a helper, basically assistant to the supervisor. And so when Mr. Nichols left, that position wasn't filled. But since then, we have created a hiring freeze. But
right.
But the chief has the authority to open up any positions, and that was one of the positions we went ahead and opened up and are trying to fill as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other positions that I guess are in the same boat would include the appointment of permanent cabinet
Yes.
Secretaries.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess first of all, where are we with that process, and two, what might be the things that are holding it up?
The thing that's holding it up is really this whole COVID issue.
Okay.
Because it really just bogged us down. Chief and I were on track. We had interviewed people. We were just getting ready to the second round of interviews, and all of a sudden in March, this COVID reared its head, and it really just took up all of our time. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. It. I think on March 13th is when we did the state of emergency, and everything has been just happening rapidly since then. And so really that. And at the beginning of March, really our time frame, Gary, was to have the second round of interviews in March, and then to have in April to have to submit to the National Council our picks for the appointed positions, and so that didn't happen. That second round never really happened, and so it really just put everything to a halt because we had to deal with this COVID situation. So we're basically right in the middle of things, of how we originally planned it.
So you have a list of prospective candidates,
Yes.
but you just can't take any formal. You're not taking any formal action.
Not the way we wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah, because really, in actuality, come January 6th, when Chief was, at his inauguration, he could have said on the 7th, could have wiped out the whole cabinet and said, "Hey, here's my picks," but that's not the way he wanted to do it. and he wanted to open it up to anybody, and that's what we did. And I don't want to take too much from and this is a credit to Chief, is that when he opened it up, we had over 100 applications for these positions.
Oh my!
Yes, and we interviewed every single person that applied.
Oh gosh,
Yes.
that's an incredible task.
Yes, and so that's a credit to Chief Hill, and that's what he said he was going to do, and that's what we did. And after that first round of interviews, of course you got to cut them down. That's what we wanted to do, is to reduce them down. And so we reduced them down, but we haven't had the opportunity to do the second round because that's when the COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've tried to do our best to kind of move forward, but it's just been so hard right now because we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. So
as we're looking at the possibilities of returning to business as usual, has any information come down that might give you kind of an idea of when it might be possible?
To answer your question straightforward, no.
Okay.
Because we're still waiting for this peak. When is this thing going to peak? And it hasn't happened yet. Because it's all about projections. Projections aren't 100% accurate, and so it was projected that this week was going to be the peak. At first, it was last week. So now they said the 21st, and now we heard, well, maybe the week after, the last week of April. So we haven't seen that projected hit yet, and maybe it's because that everybody is doing what we're supposed to be doing. Maybe it's because that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, but we're just waiting for that peak to hit and see, okay, now it's starting to go down. And so then, my personal thinking is, once we hit that peak and it starts going down, the numbers start going down, who's to say when it's safe to go back to normal? Will it ever be normal?
Oh, yeah.
So those are the type of questions that I just kind of ask myself, is what is going to be normal from here on out?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've seen some pretty substantial changes in the social atmosphere among people. Mm-hmm. Like you and I were jokingly bumping elbows when you came in.
Right.
But all of a sudden, that's if you think about it, that might be more permanent than we think it is.
That's true, and because let's just say about 3 or 4 weeks ago, when we had to start changing our social norms, our social norm amongst our people is to shake hands. That was a norm. You walk into a room, right? You shake every single hand in that room. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be in the norm now?
Right.
Because it's so hard. It was so hard to break that. It really was, to shake somebody's hand, to give somebody a hug that you've known for a long time. Man, that was hard to break. So it's one of those deals. Do we want to get back to that norm? And I liked it. Some people didn't like it. I don't know, but yeah, what's going to be the norm now from here on out?
Right. Well, taking that question a step further. How do you feel that's going to affect upcoming social and political and, let's say, revenue-making events? I'm thinking perhaps things like we're going to have Stomp Dance season before too long. You're going to have the festival. Mm-hmm. You have churches getting together. I know the Wild Onion dinner season is pretty well wiped out. And
right.
Maybe somebody will do something there. But,
right.
Wow, what an impact. It's a real wallop now. What are your thoughts on things like that?
When you talk about our ceremonial grounds and our churches, that's something that we don't have any control of.
Right, yes.
They're autonomous. They can do what they want to do, but we have had contact with pastors and Mikos, the ceremonial grounds, and they really just want our input. What should they do? And we tell them that we can't tell you what to do. We can just provide you with information, and you make the best decision for you and your people. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where we've left it at. And everybody knows the situation. Everybody knows what's out there. And so we can't tell a ceremonial ground when to dance. We can't tell a church when to have service or when to close service. Mm-hmm. All we can do is just provide the information. Me and my church, I've talked to my pastor, and that we made the decision to just do our services online. We'll do it on Facebook, just because, one, most of our congregation is elders. So we got to look out for our elders.
Right.
So that's the kind of decisions that we make, but the things that we can control, like the festival. It's supposed to be in June, and that's coming up here pretty quick, right? So,
oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be here before we know it, and so it's one of them deals where we just got to take it literally day by day.
Mm-hmm.
What's the count today? And that's at 11 o'clock. Between 11 and 11:30, we have updated numbers on the how many people are affected by the virus. How many people got the virus, and so every day we look at it. What's the count today? What's the count today? And as long as it keeps on going up and it's not going down, then that's going to affect our decision. And like I said, June will get here pretty quick, and we just don't know. We just don't know. I mean, we got to make a decision, pretty quick. But like I said, it's a day by day type. It's literally a day by day situation that we're involved in. There has been times where the past, let's just say about 3 weeks ago, we were making decisions at 8:30, at 9 o'clock that we had to either implement that afternoon or we had to change. Something happened between 8 and 12 where we said, hey, that's not going to work. Let's change it. We got to switch it up. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we're at right now, and what we're dealing with is it's for a while there it was hourly.
Oh yeah,
it was an hourly situation.
It still is.
Yeah, to a certain point, it still is. It still is.
Right. I know this might not exactly be your area of focus, but the health department, how are they responding? Are there responders holding up? Have you seen numbers of Creek citizens coming in? Kind of what's the picture there?
I don't know the numbers as far as the Creek citizens because, we have, to answer the first part, our health system has done an excellent job. They have held up quite well during this whole epidemic or pandemic. And they responded well. I know this because Secretary Sean Terry comes in and gives us a briefing every single morning. He's in our office giving a briefing. But two, my wife works for the health system, and so she gives me a briefing at the end of the day. Of what has happened. So they're on top of things. On a national level, they're on top of things. On a local level, they're on top of things. And we just got to make sure that our frontline workers are have the proper PPE to protect themselves. We got to make sure that they're are holding up, not only physically but also mentally. Because this takes a mental toll on you also. So whatever they need, we're there to support them and to make sure that they know that hey, they're doing a great job and we support them, however it may be. Whatever they need. It's our job to go find it and to go get it.
Right.
So we support Secretary Terry and whatever he's doing. He has his fingers on the pulse of the health system, and so they're doing an excellent job.
Capsulize his last report and give us an idea of we have the personnel. Do we have the protective?
Yeah, everything's good as far as that goes. Mm-hmm. We're just still waiting on that surge. That's what they're calling it now, is a surge. We sat in on a Zoom conference call yesterday with the state of Oklahoma, and that's what they're gearing up for, is the surge. When is this surge going to happen? It may never happen, because maybe we were so proactive in this thing that we don't see this surge like New York is seeing.
Right.
So they're gearing up the hospitals. They're taking a check on how many ventilators are out there. So yeah, that's the thing right now is we're gearing up. We're gearing up, and we're ready. We are ready.
Okay.
We got ventilators. We got beds ready. The Natalsa's ready. We're ready, and so we're just waiting on this surge. And so And I can't remember the second part of your question, but
how our people.
the creeks.
Yeah.
Like I said, we our hospitals, and that's where it's mainly going to be focused at, is our hospitals. They're community hospitals. In Okemah, that's the only hospital in Okemah, right?
Yeah,
and
the only one in 70 miles.
Right. Yeah. So it's for everybody. Our hospital here in Okmulgee, it's for everybody. So we're not really keeping track. I say we. I don't know. They could be. I think we always keep. There's always numbers somewhere because that's what hospitals are about numbers and so that's whether it's one of our citizens or not. We will know if it's one of our citizens, and there has been no new cases, amongst the tribe that we know of. I can't say if somebody out in Texas or California has got it, but as far as here around that we can keep track of, has been no new cases. So. It seems like we're doing a fairly good job of staying home. That's the main thing, right? If you got sent home, that's where you should be. Stay home, unless you got to go to the grocery store or something like that.
Sure.
But stay at home, practice social distancing. I know people are getting antsy. When the weather, especially when the weather gets nice, people want to get out and do stuff. And believe me, I'm in the same boat. But when I go home, that's where I stay. As I stay home.
Well, if you wanted to go to the lake today, it might be a little chilly prospect.
That's right.
Okay. Well, as we have watched some of the national scene, it looks like the Navajos are getting hammered the hardest.
Yes.
To the point where they pretty much closed their borders and they have tribal police checking people. If you got business here, okay, well, go on. If you don't, if you're a tourist, sorry. Right. And other tribes are looking at similar sorts of things. Now, is there anything in the future here for the Creek Nations? Any drastic sort of thing like that?
No, I don't think so. That, like I said, as of right now, no, I don't see that because it's
kind of hard to do.
It is, yeah, because you know this. They're reservations. They have the ability to lock down their reservation. We don't have that ability. So, but oh my God, the Navajos, just their situation, their factors involved, as far as like, access to health care and to even electricity or running water. I mean, there are so many factors there that just play into the virus spreading on that rereservation that I guess, fortunately, we don't have to deal with.
Right. Let me change the subject here so we can take advantage of having you here.
Sure.
First of all, we got news from the Supreme Court that the McGirt case is still on their docket, but we still don't have a day or anything like that.
Right.
What do you think there? What kind of news do you have on that?
We haven't had anything new come up. It's still the same. We shouldn't.
I'll try and
2 months ago, we were getting prepared to go to D.C. It's the 15th. The original doc was April 21st.
Right.
And so we should be, at this time, getting prepared to go. But as of now, it got pushed back. I just saw some stuff on there. Jason showed us some stuff about that's going to be it's going to be teleconference arguments,
Sure.
Which should be interesting. That should be interesting for the first time in history. They're going to do teleconference arguments, and so. But I was there 2 years ago in November, whenever the Murphy case was being argued, and it's an hour long. Each side gets 30 minutes. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to be able to listen in and hear the arguments, hear the state side, hear I guess Mr. McGirt's side now. It's not Mr. Murphy since it's not here in the McGirt case. Here, Mr. McGirt's side, and we have a. Amicus brief also filed on it, so maybe our lawyer in D.C. will our firm will get 10 minutes to maybe do our side, our argument. So
10 minutes for something of this.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It's absurd.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you something a little closer. Now, the Governor Stitt hasn't exactly been a favorite person in Indian country lately.
Correct. That'd be a fair assumption. Yes.
Yeah. We're looking at that the I don't want to say contracts, but compacts. Right.
Compact.
We're still waiting on something like that. Now, I think the date of an arbitration has been announced and then kicked back.
Mm-hmm.
So where is that situation now?
I can't really say really anything on that because it's still, like you said, it's still in arbitration, and the judge in that, the mediator is very, very strict on don't talk about it. Especially, I mean, if we weren't involved, if we weren't on the, if we weren't a party, I could maybe speak about it. But since we are a party to that, I've been instructed not to.
I understand, sure. But his popularity is pretty low right now.
It's amongst the. I mean, if we're not going to talk about the compact issue, I mean, if you just look at the newspaper, what's happened between him and the legislators up there, I mean, they McCall and Treat and two other senators have had to file basically a lawsuit against him to get that rainy day fund pushed through. I think it was $319 million that he didn't sign, that bill he didn't sign. And so I think it was this week they filed to get that pushed through.
All right, now in sort of a related question, of course Mike Hunter pulled out of that whole legal mess thing. The AG is not going to get in here. And not too long after that, his native liaison person, Lisa Belly, resigned, and she was not happy, saying that she had told the governor not to get into this fight, don't start it.
Right.
You probably conceivably would lose it. And resigned, walked out, and said, "That's it. I'm not playing this game anymore." And her predecessors, there were two others. One of them was Jackie Hensley, and I forget the other gentleman's name. Basically, did nothing. I looked at the reports, watched for anything coming out of those offices or anything like that, and there was zip. So does that affect your faith then in the word of the state of Oklahoma and its relationship with tribes?
You said, does it affect my faith?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm asking you, not the tribe. But
me personally, I didn't have much, I don't want to say faith, but I just never really relied on the state to begin with.
Okay.
It's always been a kind of a business relationship, and so and when I started working for the tribe and got on the National Council and in this spot, you just kind of take it day by day, and you don't. It's just one of them deals where I can't control what the state does,
sure.
And they're surely not going to control what we do. So whatever they want to do, it's they're going to consult with us, but at the end of the day, what they do is their business.
Right.
And I know it affects everybody because we are Oklahoma. We are. I am a Oklahoman. I was born here and I'll die here.
Right.
So it does. What they do does affect me, but on the business side of it, my main concern is the Creek Nation.
Right. So you're sooner born, sooner bred,
right,
and when you die, you'll be sooner dead.
That's exactly right.
Speaking of Sooners, there was the 1880 land rush flap recently involving the new Imagine That campaign of the state. Now, we used to have Native Oklahoma on their license plates.
Right.
They changed that to a bird, and somehow it feels like the thinking is, oh, well, we don't need to mess with those people anymore. And their campaign said everything pretty well started in 1889 with the land rush, forgetting whose land they rushed over.
Right.
And the long history of Native people being here. And a lot of, particularly the fur on the back of my neck stood up, and I was a little snarling. And then they, of course, had to fess up and say, whoops, I guess we made a mistake. So what does that show you? I mean, is the thinking still there that Indians don't count, or what do you feel?
I don't. My thinking is there was no thinking in it. I mean,
they hired an outside firm.
Right, right. It was. I've heard some backstories on who they hired, and they hired some people from Canada, of all places, to help with this, and I've heard there are some firms here in Oklahoma that helped out, but I don't think the tribe ever received a letter asking for their input on this. I mean, Jason, do you? Yes or no? Did we receive? Do you remember seeing a letter or anything?
No. I mean, I think we were just like everyone else. It came out. We were told this is what you're getting. This is what you have to deal with, and then we sort of reacted and adjusted just like everyone else has.
Yeah.
Right.
So
now that would have been a situation where someone like Lisa Billy being on staff could have avoided.
Could have, yes. Mm-hmm.
Saying, this is stupid. You're going to
right.
make a lot of people PO'd, on this sort of.
Yeah,
and
I heard
out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I heard after the fact that. One of the points on the stars is supposed to represent the tribes. I don't even know how, because I think they were just trying to make something up because it said the 5 points represent the 5 big tribes.
Sure.
Well, we got more than 5 tribes here in Oklahoma.
34 more other.
Right. So why are you going to exclude them? That'll make it. That's not right. So I think that was just kind of made up after the fact.
Yeah,
That's just my personal.
Can't imagine the Comanches or Kiowas sitting around taking that.
Right.
Well, I tell you what, we're gonna wrap this up. I do appreciate you extending some time with me this morning as our Seat of the Pants radio show went along. Do you have a final thought or something you'd like to wrap up and leave with our listeners?
Last Friday, on Good Friday, we had last week we had a shipment of food come in from, it was a donation from Walmart, and through partnerships with the Cherokee Nation and some other tribes, but really it started with the Cherokee Nation that this food was able to get to us. You know what, Gary, I cannot be more proud of how we responded with this, because it came in. I think we got the text. I think Monday night saying, "Hey, would you guys want a semi-load of food, perishables? Not canned foods, but perishables." And we're like, "Absolutely," And from there, Chief called Sean Partridge, Shane Holby, and just got a few people together saying, "Hey, we're going to get this food. How are we going to give it out to our citizens?" And in the next 48 to 72 hours, what they did was amazing. They got with the casinos. The casinos were on board, and we got distribution sites, and we got trucks to deliver them. And Jason was instrumental in getting the word out, and to have everything go from Monday night to Friday, 9 sites. They divided up the food equally. We got the word out when and where, and to have I think around 2,500 people be able to get some type of food from this. It was just amazing how our people worked together, and everybody was on board, and it was just amazing what we were able to do from nothing to get it done in about 24 to 72 hours. It was just amazing to watch it, and Gary, to me that just shows the resiliency of our people, how we overcome obstacles. We don't. Nobody was griping about it. It was something that we wanted to do for our citizens, and it was just, to me, that just shows our spirit, and that we're not going to let this COVID thing beat us.
Right.
And it's not going to beat us. And so that to me just shows how much we can get done whenever we just have a little bit of time. I just can't be more proud of what we've done.
Well, we've got some wonderful people out there.
Absolutely.
Well, Second Chief Del Beaver, we want to thank you again for taking time out of that ridiculously crazy schedule of yours. And know that we will be knocking on your door, and we want to thank Jason for cooperating and making access happen for us. It's a real pleasure to be able to get response from a chief's office when you ask for it. It's great. It's wonderful. All right, well, thank you. We're going to take a short pause here, and we'll be back, and we're going to talk about the SANE program, the Sexual Assault Nurses Enterprise program that's going on that is serving our people. So please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in 2 worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am, and meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew, 1240 AM and 106.3 FM here on from beautiful downtown Old Mogi. Joining us now, we have let me grab my notes here. We have some folks here coming in from the SANE program, Vanessa Phillips, who's the manager, and Brandy Tregesser, who is a nurse. We have had folks talk about this program before, but I think the subject matter is so important we don't mind doing a repeat and having some of your folks back in. First of all, for people who are not aware of what SANE is, perhaps one of you could explain what your program's all about.
The sexual assault nurse program, what we do is if somebody has been sexually assaulted sexually assaulted, then we do a sexual assault exam. A SANE nurse will come in and perform a forensic exam on them. And then we can, in turn, if they choose, if they're 18 or older, they have a choice to turn it into law enforcement or not. But we can send that forensic kit with law enforcement, and it'll help the case against the perpetrator.
Mm-hmm. So, kind of to simplify, you come in, if you get a call, someone needing help or assistance or some kind of recording of evidence, if you will, mm-hmm. then that's what your program will do. Besides bringing physical relief to them, you might have some ideas on where they can turn.
Right. And we work hand in hand with the Family Violence Prevention Program, and they help coordinate the aftercare, like the follow-up with if they need a ride somewhere or anything like that. So we refer them to them, but we do like the medical part of it.
Okay.
The forensic exam, like a pelvic exam if they need one, and things like that. The nurse will write out the story, as they tell what happened. The nurse will write it out word for word for them and help them out that way. Right.
I would imagine their thinking isn't particularly clear at a moment like that, so you've got the support crew coming in to make sure there is evidence that something has happened, and then to record their story about how the event happened, right? Right,
in their words. And whenever a response happens, an advocate will come with and the nurse will be there. That way, they have somebody to talk to. Makes it more personal. Right,
and plus it's got some legal legs to stand on too. As I guess the manager of the program, then at this point, do you all have numbers? Do you keep records, without giving anybody's name, of the number of cases that you've dealt with so far?
We have had. I have to think back to my numbers now.
Well, ballpark numbers is fine.
I know for the month of April, we have so far done 3 sexual assault exams and 3 domestic violence exams. We do those as well.
Okay, and that, of course, is Brandy. While we've got you there on the mic, you're part of the boots on the ground that actually goes out and works with clients there. Is there a quote-unquote typical situation where you go and lend your support to a client?
I would say they're all very individualized, but when there's a hotline number that a patient or law enforcement, family member, anybody can call when they need assistance, a nurse will respond within an hour. We do exams at both the Altmulgee Medical Center and the Okemah Community Hospital. We are on call 24/7. We do pediatric exams, adult, adolescent exams. Those are all very different. But we do our best to provide a safe environment, a very comfortable environment. And in addition to the medical exam, collection of evidence, we also offer antibiotics, anaphylactic antibiotics in the event that they think they may have been exposed to a sexually transmitted infection. We provide that to them. We also can do the Plan B if that's something that they would like to do. But we do provide a lot of emotional support, as well as assessment of any injuries that need to be treated immediately. We do follow-up care with the Family Violence Prevention Program. They can offer counseling, and there are several services that they are able to hook them up with as well.
Now, for folks who aren't familiar with Plan B, that's the morning after pill, is that right?
Yeah, also known as, yeah.
And that's after a case of rape.
Yeah. And that's definitely a choice that they make. We explain to them exactly what it is, how it works, and let them make that choice, not even right at that moment, before the end of the exam. That's a choice that they have if they've had an assault within the last 72 hours.
Wow. It's a tough decision to have to make.
It is.
Now, as you progress along on your mission, do we have some changing attitudes in our communities? I know when I was growing up, a guy beat his wife. Well, behind closed door, that's where it stayed. Da-da-da. Or something equally ridiculous was pretty much acceptable. And we used to even see it on TV shows with Jackie Gleason. Okay, Alice, boom, wham, to the moon. When they make a big fist. But it would seem to me in the last decades or so that attitude has changed and it's no longer acceptable. Saying, you hit your wife, we're going to turn you into the cops. Now, is there something that makes you feel that is the case?
It is. It's getting better with people, like the knowledge that people have that this isn't right, this is not supposed to happen this way, and knowing that you have a program out here that can help the situation out, like the SANE program, because we don't just do sexual assault exams, but we also do domestic violence exams as well. So knowing that the program is out here, I think really helps the public know that there is help. Now
you mentioned some areas that I would assume would extend into the criminal area, assault and battery, things like that. So that would seem like it would require a police presence, a law enforcement presence. Do you call the light horse, do you call them now?
Well, if they're 18 and older, they have a choice whether they want the exam to be given to law enforcement or not. But if it's a pediatric exam that we've done, it's automatic. We automatically call law enforcement, and we serve native and non-native. We serve everybody, so sometimes it won't be light horse. Sometimes it'll be the police department in which it happened. Like if it happened in Okemah, we'd call Okemah.
Right.
And we also call DHS out and do a thing that way, a report.
I should imagine the county sheriff's office is
Yes.
also included. Have things improved, do you think, then since these attitudes have changed and people are more aware? I know that you may not have numbers at your fingertips, but do you feel like there's a downward decline in these cases that you have to handle?
Actually, it's more like a increase in cases that we handle, and it's not because there's more going on. It's that people,
Right.
so that outreach and them knowing they can come to us. Our numbers are growing. I thought about it. I think we've done 30 exams since October, because our grant starts in October and ends in October. I think we've done 30 since then, a mix between domestic violence and sexual assault exams. But yeah, it's growing because we're getting out there more, and people know that they can come to us for help. So it's been going on. It's just been brought to the light.
Right. People are more calling on the resource that's available.
Yes.
Saying, hey, I don't have to put up with this, or I've been hurt and I can call someone and get some help, either medical or legal, if it needs to be. As you go along now, we've gotten a feel for like who is a quote unquote typical victim, but they're not all female. Most of the thinking is, well, a woman got beat up or her old man got drunk and whatever. I understand, there are numbers that are indeed males. Are these grown men? Are they young boys, kids? What?
We've actually seen both. We see inmates. Several of the male population that we have seen have been inmates, but there have been adolescent boys, young boys as well. Yeah, and that's for the sexual assault. The domestic violence can go either way as well. And another thing that we do that we didn't mention was we do strangulation assessments.
Oh, gosh.
When it comes to strangulation, law enforcement, they're seeing many more cases in the recent, I would say probably few years. But we do a very complete assessment. We do a lot of education with follow-up because there's a lot of problems you could potentially have even a few weeks down the road that you didn't have immediately. So we make sure that they know what to look for and all that. But yes, we do definitely both male and female.
Why don't you stay there for a second and maybe share what the red flags of strangulation?
So strangulation, it's important to understand what that is. So that's whenever somebody either puts hands or an object, something around another person's neck to completely cut off blood flow. So when you don't have blood flow to your brain, you don't have oxygen to your brain either. So there's a lot of things that could potentially happen, especially neurologically. You could pass out, you could lose control over your bowels and your bladder. But when we have a patient come in that has been strangled, we make sure that we always do a head-to-toe assessment anyway, but specific things that we're looking for would be like there's little spots, they're called petechii, where the little bitty blood vessels at the surface of your skin burst. And we would look for those inside the ears, in the eyes, in the nose, in the mouth, the tongue, the tonsils, to let you know that maybe the strangulation had lasted longer than a few seconds. It doesn't take very much pressure at all. In fact, less pressure than it takes to open up a can of pop to strangle somebody. It doesn't take very long to cause damage. But we have a list that we do. We always photograph injuries if we see any petechii, bruising, scratching, ligature marks on the neck, swelling, pain. That's definitely things that we always document. And strangulation is a felony. So that's a charge in addition to whatever assault that might have occurred as well. So it's very important to get that very complete assessment.
It's just not red marks on the neck.
No, it's actually very, very rare we actually see red marks on the neck. It's the other issues that you can see. And 2 weeks later, you can have issues where you're passing out or you're having headaches or something's just not quite right. And it's important to know that because 2 weeks later, you would assume maybe it was something else, but I always tell them, make sure, anything that happens in the next few months even, make sure you remember to tell your provider that you were strangled.
Right. It seems like everything in the news these days is related to COVID-19, and there are signs that it's affecting the situations that your staff has to deal with. Now, everybody's stuck in the house, and we were kind of joking about griping at each other and this kind of thing, but it can be taken to the point where this crime is now showing up even more because we're kind of packed in.
Yes, and even on the Tulsa News, they reported that domestic violence is going up due to the COVID with everybody being inside. So, and we have definitely seen an influx since this has started. We've had 6 exams in just a few weeks. So, and that's more than what we normally would see.
Would that be like the battered spouse kind of thing?
well, we've had the 3 DVs and the 3 sexual assaults.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, usually what we call intimate partner violence is either cohabitation, like it's a male and a female, or a male-male, female-female, but it's intimate partner. But also domestic violence can also be a son beating up a dad, or a daughter beating up a mother, that we've actually had here recently, a few of those as well. But we mainly do the intimate partner violence, but we make sure we do the strangulation assessment on anybody that comes in.
Right.
There's a question I don't often get to ask people, but in performing this task, this answering the call, so to speak, is there some toll it takes on yourselves or your other staff members? I mean, you can't be seeing this all the time and not be effective.
Right. I would definitely say it does. It's very important for self-care with anybody, and healthcare especially. But whenever you have a job where you deal with people that are constantly going through physical, emotional, mental trauma, it definitely, because we can't leave a lot of that at work. We think about it and things like that, but it's very important to understand. And how I personally, when someone says, how in the world can you do that? Because I do kids, how in the world can you do that? It's awful. Well, yeah, it's awful, but I know when I show up, I do my exam, and when I leave, I know that I have done a good thing. I've created a safe space for somebody, even if it was just for a few hours. I've created a safe space. I've given somebody encouragement. I've done a complete physical assessment, evidence, injuries, things that will help prosecute, an assailant. So at the end of the day, I know I did something good. That personally is what makes me get through doing them repeatedly over and over and over. It never gets easy. You never get used to it. You never completely block it out, but you are there for a support system and let them know that for that moment they don't have to be brave. They can break down, they can cry, they can have whatever moment that they need.
That trust is so important. Okay, Vanessa, are there, I guess the same question, are there visions or experiences that just get to you? I mean, you just can't leave behind, kind of thing.
Well, with me, kind of like with her, I see it as, because when I first took this job, I was told, are you going to be able to handle it? And the way I see it is, we're doing this report, and I'm handing it off to law enforcement, and they're going to get whoever's done this. That's my concept on it. Like, I am helping get this person off the street so that they can't do it again to somebody else, or they know there's going to be consequences if they do this. So that's pretty much how I get through it.
Are there, once again, coming back to the subject of numbers, cases where you worked on and you've seen a prosecution go through to a final punishment stage? I mean, somebody goes behind bars because of your work?
We have, and excuse me, and as nurses, we oftentimes get called to court. We get subpoenas and it seems like it's most generally in the pediatric cases that we get called, but we can get called anything, even the domestic violence ones. But there are times that we do and we testify. We not only defend our exam, from point A to point Z, but we can also be called as an expert witness to another case to testify as a professional. How would you have acted in this situation? And it may not even be a case that you did, but we are certified to do that as well.
I know you all both have kind of touched on it, but when you're on the winning side again, what does it make you feel when you go home at night and kick off your boots and lay back a little bit and maybe think about it?
And know that that person isn't going to be able to do that to that child anymore or whatever. I mean, that's good.
It's a good feeling.
It's a good feeling.
It's good to know when you had part of that process too. And as with anything, as a nurse, you have a lot of days you think, why in the world am I doing this? Am I ever doing any good? But when something like that happens, you're like, okay, that's why I did this. I helped just a little bit, if not anything, to give them that little ounce of control for those few hours that we were in there. When they don't have control over really anything in life generally in that moment that they do, and that you're able to help with that and get somebody, prosecuted behind bars is definitely a good feeling.
Yeah, feel like it was all worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
As this viral epidemic moves along, it's it's still with us, and we don't know when it may end. Are you still available? Real quick,
Yes.
And a phone number?
Yes.
Yes, we are still available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The phone number to get a hold of us would be 918-732-7979, and you'll talk to an advocate, and the advocate will dispatch the pediatric nurse or the adult nurse, depending on the age of the patient.
All right. Well, Brandy,
Perfect.
Vanessa, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in
Thank you.
and sharing this with us. Well,
Thank you.
you've been listening to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew, 106.3 FM, 1240 AM. We appreciate it, and so we'll move on here and talk at you all later. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But